This is Section 1B, Pre-Writing and Preparation of Module 1, Getting Ready to Write the Grant Proposal. What is pre-writing? Pre-writing is the work you do before you start writing the grant. This stage is very important. The pre-writing work that you do can make the difference between a successful and unsuccessful grant application. Grants can be disqualified for errors as small as the wrong font size or exceeding the number of pages allowed. So you need to become familiar with the requirements. You do this during the pre-writing phase. Here are some tips for a successful proposal. We will provide general tips that are helpful for writing any proposal, as well as tips that are specific to the PDG Cycle 43 proposals. Read the RFP. As we said, the RFP is your roadmap to the grant, and the document contains things like the priorities of the funder. Make sure your idea is something that the funder wants to fund. How to structure your proposal, including sections and page limits, what to emphasize in the description of your program, how your program meets the state's plans, priorities, and objectives, how to present your proposal as right for the job, and whether you meet the eligibility criteria. You should know the funding agency. If available, look at the types of projects they have funded in the past. Also, what are typical amounts that have been funded? Use a highlighter to note important parts of the RFP. RFPs are often long and confusing. In addition to instructions, as well as the application and attachments, they also contain information about the funder and funding. Highlighting and making notes helps you keep track of all the information. Make a grant writing checklist. The funder may include a checklist, but this is only to make sure you are submitting all of the required sections and documents. It's a good idea to make a checklist of all the steps in developing the proposal. Be sure to include deadlines and who is responsible for each step. Be realistic about deadlines. Leave a little more time in the end. You will need the time buffer because it will take longer than you think. Grants put together at the last minute are often not as well written and organized as those following a schedule. Use the language they use. A helpful strategy is to make a Word document where you copy and paste words and phrases from the RFP so you can use them as building blocks of your proposal. This is one place where borrowing the language of another document, the RFP, in this way is perfectly acceptable and in fact is advisable, but don't overdo it. Do not copy and paste sections from the RFP and make it sound like you wrote them. The key strategy is to use terms and the phrases, not the full sentences and paragraphs. Review their scoring criteria. This tells you what the funder is most interested in. You should structure your proposal so it's easy for the reviewers to score. Pay attention to page limits. Page limits are non-negotiable. Your proposal will be disqualified if it's too long. So it's important that your proposal is clear and to the point. However, if your proposal is much shorter than the limit, it might mean that you're not giving enough information. Make it easy to navigate your proposal. Use subheadings to make it easier for reviewers to read. If possible, match the subheadings to the scoring criteria or to the subheadings in the RFP. Put a table of contents in the front of your application. Use their checklist if provided. Proofread and edit your grant. You want your grant to look and read as professionally as possible. Spelling counts and appearances matter. find someone who is not part of the writing team to proofread your proposal. It's hard to proofread your own work. You can also get feedback as to whether your idea was clear and easy to understand. A sloppy proposal with a lot of typos and inconsistent formatting does not present you in the best light, even if you have an excellent idea. And make sure the text of your application looks as organized as you can, and make sure the grammar and spelling are correct. Get it in on time. If you are submitting hard copies, allow enough time for the proposal to arrive on time. A word to the wise, FedEx and UPS are sometimes late. It's frustrating to be disqualified because you missed the deadline by a few hours or minutes. Although the RFP may give you limited time to submit the proposal, such as 60 days from the RFP publication, how you organize this time is important for the quality of your proposal. Now, here are some tips that are specific to the PDG Cycle 43 proposals. First of all, know your region. The State Council has different priority goals and objectives for each region. Make sure you download the RFP for your region. If you don't know what region you're in, you can find out by clicking on the regional offices on the State Council website, www.scdd.ca.gov. Determine if this project is needed in your area. If your idea isn't a priority for your region, you may want to think of a different idea. Investigate what is already available in your region. You may have a good idea, but it needs to be something that your region or community needs. Develop a timeline. Plan your time backwards from when you want to submit it. Make sure you have enough time and writers to get everything done. As we said in number 4 of general tips, make a grant writing checklist. Create a schedule with deadlines that do not compete with major events at your organization, such as a fundraiser or somebody's time away. Assemble your writing team. We'll get back to this in just a minute. Ask questions and get information. The more information you have, the more likely it will be that you'll develop a strong proposal. RFPs are not always easy to understand. Ask questions about any part of the application process. If you have questions, it's likely that somebody else does too. You can ask questions by participating in the pre-bidders conference call to be scheduled before April 15th, 2020. Check the SCDD website for the final date. Participating in the pre-bidders conference call, even if you think you understand everything, you may learn information you didn't think of. It will also give you a glimpse of your competition. Submitting questions in writing. Questions are accepted until May 1st, 2020. Read the frequently asked questions, even if you don't have questions. You may learn new information this way as well. Use the checklist that the State Council provided. Check the guidelines on the State Council website. The guidelines may change. The State Council may change the guidelines up until May 10th of 2020. Putting together a grant writing team. Grants can be written by one person or a team. Your team may consist of staff and volunteers at your agency. Your team may be completely in-house, or it may include consultants that you want to participate in your project. You may want to partner with another agency or individual. They may participate in the writing as well. A professional grant writer. Some agencies hire professional grant writers to do the writing, but you will still have to work closely with them. If your grant was written by a team, it's a good idea to edit it so it sounds like it was written in one voice. If you are putting together a team, it's important that everyone knows their roles and the deadline for each part. Identify who will be in charge of the whole proposal. That person is responsible for collecting and coordinating all the parts of the grant. The project director should be very familiar with all the requirements of the RFP. Create a dedicated group who will be writing the proposal. These may or may not be the people who will work on the project if funded. Make sure everyone knows their roles, have deadlines for their part, and that they have the time to work on their parts of the proposal. Try and assign tasks to the most appropriate person. For example, the budget should be developed by the finance person. This ends section 1B. Please proceed to section 1C. What is in the PDG Cycle 43 RFP?